shattered dreams. Our love ripped apart and there's no one to blame. Trying to forget these broken memories. I try to shake the feeling tonight. Wanna wash it all away and start a new life. Is it time for me to leave the past behind? I wanna stop breathing, I wanna stop believing. Rise into the sunlight. I just wanna shine on the inside and the outside. I wanna stop breathing, I wanna stop believing. I just wanna rise. I just wanna rise. You and I are forever left behind now. A distant dream floating up into the sky. We walked through the flames, we went through all the pain, trying to feel a fantasy. But instead of healing, we were wounded again, trying to fight gravity. And I try to shake the feeling tonight. Wanna wash it all away and start a new life. Is it time for me to leave the past behind? I wanna stop breathing, I wanna stop believing. Rise into the sunlight. I just wanna shine on the inside and the outside. I wanna stop breathing, I wanna stop believing. I just wanna rise. I just wanna rise. I just wanna shine on the inside and the outside. I wanna stop breathing, I wanna stop believing. I just wanna rise. I just wanna I just want to rise. I just want to rise. I just want to rise. I just want to rise.
What's up, YouTube? Gonna start going over some stuff in a bit. I'm just looking at YouTube's live stream settings because they're not super intuitive for someone who isn't used to these things. You could like stream multiple streams at the same time. I'm not doing that. I just want to run one stream. But it's like when you're in the window, YouTube has this like dashboard thing. I think this is common with all these a lot of these web apps. Okay, I think they called it a control panel, something like that. Alright, I was looking here because this is where the chat is. Hello, chat. I will read chats, answer questions, etc. You all post here. Cool. Getting the chat going. Getting the YouTubes ready. Let's see. So we got an interesting topic today. Mainly I'm talking to programmer people today, nerds that might be sitting at home looking for an excuse to hop on the YouTubes and hang out instead of go into their tasks that they're assigned. So I'm flipping between YouTube and Discord right now to see if there's any messages. But if not, that's okay. There's some things that I was thinking of writing about in a blog, but it seems like a lot of people, they really like videos and chats over blogs. I mean, I think there's a number of good reasons for this. One of them is the videos are actually less intrusive in some ways. The blogs could be quite annoying in that, like, I'm using Substack now. Substack, they'll ask you to subscribe. You know that they're tracking you. Like, there's all sorts of stuff that Substack has to do. As we're sitting here, we'll write up some things. You guys could see what writing looks like in real time for me. So let's call this video blogs. That is a vlog. Video blog. Vlog. Versus web logs. Logs. So I think, let's see, what do we have to say about this topic? One of the advantages of using a blog, we could say in the past, one of the advantages of using a blog over publishing a journal article, essay, etc. was the ease by which this then new form of publication allowed writers to, I'll make a note about this. We are going to avoid using the term content creator because it sounds soy. Okay, in the past, one of the advantages of using a blog over publishing a journal, article, essay, etc. was the ease by which this then new form of publication allowed writers to quickly publish their thoughts in an easily accessible, less formal style. While, of course, there are many blogs which are very formal or academic in tone, one of the appeals of the blogging space was the informality and potential to try new things and meet like-minded individuals around the world. We can see how the video format in many ways better fits this role. Whereas the advantage of blogs in the past was that they could be used to capture a less formal conversational tone. There is, of course, no substitute for actual speaking and the nuances that can be captured in one's recorded voice. Now, the technology has progressed to such a degree, such an extent, that the technological limitations are decreasingly annoying. So people that were around in the early 2000s, for example, can recall how frustrating the desktop computer experience was. Decreasingly annoying. People that were around in the early 2000s, for example, can recall how frustrating the desktop computer experience was, such that the technology naturally presents itself as an effective medium of communication. So that's to say, like, the popularity of the blog, I think, was due to, people could just type up on these blog sites, Blogger, whatever people are using, and they could quickly publish, whereas anyone that's done any academic work or that sort of thing, going through journals, even like writing emails, for a lot of people, these things could be quite taxing and burdensome. Whereas the advantage of a blog was, like, if you thought of something or you wanted to test the water or whatever, you could just put something out. Maybe a kind of related topic to this is that of forum posts. We can make a note about that. One type of, what would you call it? Type, a medium, forum posts. One other publication, avenue of publication, that arose alongside blogs was that of forums. Many essays have been written on web forums. Okay, the modern hub of a lot of this activity is Reddit, though now they are in big trouble. I don't use Reddit, by the way. In the past, like, I've tried to go on Reddit. Like, I could even say, like, very, like, without much effort, I've tried to even, like, get into Reddit in the past. This is like years ago when I more so believed a lot of, like, the Silicon Valley hype about a lot of stuff. So it's like, Reddit, they brand themselves as the quote unquote the front page of the internet. So I was kind of thinking, okay, well, if this is where it's happening on the internet, then, what sort of things are people interested in? And, I tried to, like, reply to stuff and very briefly get involved with Reddit. But I lost interest pretty quickly because, and maybe, this is like, well, it probably is some kind of province. Like, what if I posted on Reddit and then something I wrote got, like, crazy upvoted, or whatever they call their mechanism, and then I spiraled down the Reddit Fedora, the path of the way of the Reddit Fedora tipper, and I got addicted to the platform. But thankfully, I mean, it's just like on this YouTube channel, we're an extremely low viewership channel, but that's okay, because it's like YouTube gives this free platform in which we could do these things like live streams for free, essentially. So it's super cool. Let's make another note. This is a totally different topic, but that's why we're on this live stream, just to show how the thought process and the workflow goes a little bit. I'm going to talk about internet privacy and security a little bit. So, what we are doing now is broadcasting live on YouTube. Since we're on YouTube and this is live, clearly there are many privacy security risks to be concerned about if one were to care about such things. However, if you are not so perturbed or not so anxious about privacy security type issues, then you get a whole lot of stuff for free. So, I don't know, like, okay, thought experiment. If you were to try to set up something with the technological capabilities of YouTube, what would it take? Lots of free software and open source enthusiasts have tried to emulate the establishment's offerings in the form of their quote-unquote freer alternatives. However, at the end of the day, what do we continue to see? People make ample use of YouTube, Gmail, etc. These are establishment products of Silicon Valley, also known as Silly Valley. So this is another viewpoint I'm trying to flesh out, sketch out, which is about how do we best make use of what technology is there. You could call this a sort of red pill or black pill. Oh, we're joined by a guest. Hi, Reaper, by the way. About security, internet, etc., etc. Because I used to be one of those people that would use Linux, and I know how to use Emacs and Vim, and do a lot of this fancy nerd stuff. Now I'm using Windows and I'm live streaming, on YouTube. So why is that? I mean, in short, I think one of the reasons is it just works. So if you're trying to do stuff, at the end of the day, you can't become too obsessed about the tools that you're using, such that those tools override or interrupt your processes too much. Like, I'll put it this way, the Microsoft Word, Excel nowadays, I don't like to use them, because when the cloud stuff doesn't work, or when these things are like laggy or finicky, it actually like bothers me, and it slows down the actual work that I'm trying to do. On the other hand, like YouTube, it took a little bit of setup to get it live, but once it is live, it just goes. It just works, bro. It just works. And because of that, it's easy to roll with. I mean, Gmail, you set up your email once, you don't want to have to fuss and worry about your email all day. I've heard having your own email server like Hillary Clinton is extremely time-consuming, difficult, And from the cyber security standpoint, it's not a very favorable thing to you. Oh, cool. We're joined by another friend. Rochat says, "What do you think about vaping?" Okay, actually, these are all good questions. So let's talk about vaping. Let me pull up the window I had. So we're gonna talk about like societal taboos, vaping, and the establishment campaign to make you feel bad. Okay. They want you to feel bad about things you shouldn't feel that bad about, and about things you should actually feel bad about. They want you to tell yourself not to feel bad. And we'll talk more about the therapy, psychology, what I call psychobabble, and all of that in a bit, because all of this is related. Okay, so vaping. What do I think of vaping? Personally, I do not vape. I know a lot of people that do vape. I think because I'm working like trades type jobs now, a lot of like normal working people vape. You'll see like some nice clean car and the windows will be tilted. It might be slightly vibrating from some music playing. I mean, a lot of these guys are like, vaping it up in their cars. And they probably have a girlfriend and I don't. So, obviously a lot of people like vaping, and, like the health effects, all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's really hard to tell. I think a lot of these things too. It's different for the person, but I think just generally it's something that people do that isn't like shoving pizzas down themselves or like chugging cokes. So you don't have to like pee and poop after you vape. So like, why do people vape? I mean, I think it's just like the same reason people will do a lot of other substances, or like right here, I have coffee. Is coffee that much different from like vaping? I don't. In my mind, it seems like vaping is more addictive, but then again, people are pretty hooked on their coffee. Anyways, I think that vaping, it falls under this category of these, what do you want to call them? Like kind of crux issues, like divisive issues. For whatever reason, the United States is full of this. Like, let's not forget that in the United States they passed prohibition with the amendment, and then they repealed prohibition. So the United States is full of moralizing behavior. Let's write that down. U.S. history is full of moralizing behavior. Oh, I hit some weird hotkey. Made a subscript. Okay, moralizing behavior. See, prohibition back in the day. So what happens is the establishment pushes and tells people to do some certain activity. Like we all know, smoking, like tobacco, was promoted. Let's even talk about driving cars. That's another example. Driving cars, drinking coffee. These things are pushed hard everywhere. Then the establishment comes around and tells you to feel bad about what they told you to do. So, for example, with cars, green energy, petroleum, blah, blah, blah. So they're like, oh, car. They push cars, automobiles at you. Then what do they tell you? Oh, it's actually, it's bad to drive a car. So what is it? Drinking coffee. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, let's say in 5 years or so, there's like a reveal, like, oh, actually, coffee is very bad for you. Like, I'll make up an hypothetical about what the psyop might be. Okay, let's see. Hypothetical psyop. Okay, coffee is actually bad for you. It makes people more anxious and uptight, and actually makes people. Can you guess what I'm about to say? Any guesses? Here's the prediction. So they'll come against, after pushing coffee everywhere, like gas stations, waiting rooms everywhere. Then they'll say coffee's bad for you. It makes people more anxious, and I was gonna say it makes people less kind. So it'll be a big. It will be a kind of human kindness psyop. Cool. Hey, we're joined by some friends. I have Ching Chong Ling Long, some Chinese characters. I can't read the last character off the top of my head, so I'm sorry I can't read your name. Hecka, Poggers, Midday Stream. Yeah. So right now we're talking about vaping, and I'm talking about this general pattern where the establishment pushes something on you and then tells people to feel bad about it later. Oh, because I know some of the people in here, they're kind of like gym keto bros. Let's talk about this one too. So we'll talk about the food pyramid. So tell everyone to eat lots of grains, etc. Now, just talking about carbohydrates and diabetes all day is a favorite middle class pastime. So there'd be another example. The establishment, it pushes all this everywhere, billboards, whatever, everywhere telling you this, that. And then, people give in and do what the establishment tells them. And then, you're told to, like, feel bad about it, like, all day. And, they offer all these solutions for these problems that they themselves have been active, instrumental in creating. So let's go back full circle and just talk about vaping really quick. So I think, vaping, it's a more of a kind of niche thing. Like, I think there's a lot of, it's more, I would say, from my experience, I've seen more men than women vaping. A lot of the times, it's like guys that are just trying to get started, trying to, work a job, just normal people. Like, I think that, for instance, there's, I think rightfully so, like a stereotype about marijuana and stuff making people kind of lazy. I think vaping kind of, it goes alongside tobacco and kind of being a sort of just a little enjoyment for hardworking people type thing. All right, Reaper says, probably more likely they say coffee has a high carbon footprint, or they ban coffee marketing to kids. That also sounds, I think they'd be doing that too. So let's add that. So actual, we'll add that as something that's actually going on now. Coffee's ecological footprint, and then also marketing towards children. Speaking of marketing towards children, I'm not going to get into all that rainbow stuff, but a topic that keeps on popping up on this stream is that of eyeglasses and optometry, because this stuff obviously got shilled hard on the children. Like, if you walk around these days and you see like the young elementary school type kids, like, you see the four eye, the bug eyes everywhere. Kids are getting glasses earlier and earlier, and then you have people a bit older, like my age or even older than me, that are looking and trying to reverse the effects of what wearing glasses has done to them. And it's like, we have, especially in the past half a century or so, a generation of people that got tricked into being Bugman, and the establishment was pushing eyeglasses everywhere. And then who knows, maybe soon we're going to see like the World Economic Forum and like all these buggers like talking about, oh yeah, we reduced myopia by just encouraging people to go outside or something, which is the correct thing to do, to just get natural light to go outside. But it's like the bad guys want to claim credit for just a God-made solution. It's just like, okay, if somebody is saying getting exercise and eating vegetables is good, and they're trying to like claim a monopoly over having like made this quote unquote discovery, you could only do something like that if you spent like years and years before pushing the opposite of that good behavior. So I think oftentimes this is a pattern we see with the establishment. They push some unnatural, weird behavior, like you will sit in an air-conditioned room and like stare at a book in front of your face all day, and then that does bad things to you, like you have back problems because of how you're sitting, and you're sitting all day, and so on and so forth. And then they'll go out and say, "Oh yeah, but now we're the physical education experts because we told you to do 10 jumping jacks a day, huh?" It's like, goofy, you're retarded. Like, you didn't come up with anything. But that's the general pattern that we see repeated. Right, Hecka says, is vaping still a thing? I was a beta tester for that movement. Vaping helped me quit smoking many years ago when vaping first became a thing in New England. And then Reaper says, vaping is super big. All the kids do it. We have another guest joining us, AJ Lizak. What's your opinion on World of T-shirts ruining his life on TikTok Live? I'm not familiar with this World of T-shirts story. If you could summarize like what happened, we could talk about the phenomenon, where I could pull it up in my Firefox browser and we could have a look. But I haven't heard of this or thought about it. We could though talk about just generally, a more general topic would be exhibitionism. So social media and exhibitionism, like off the top of my head, what I could think of is like videos of people doing nasty stuff, e.g. Like girl licking toilet seat to get attention, just discussing stuff that like people would do on social media to get attention. Or we could even see we all type in a Korean now. We could type in what is a mukbang, the Korean mukbang, just watching people, usually cute girls but not always, eating food, and often large quantities of it, extremely spicy stuff, live octopi and other weirdo novelties, curiosities, something like that. It's another topic. Let's check in the chat. So having some details about vapes. So I'll let you guys talk that out. As I said, I don't vape myself, but I know people that do vape. From my experience too, like all the people I know that do use like vapes or smoke cigarettes, they've all been like very considerate and like polite about it. For instance, like when I meet new people and let's say they smoke, it would be, I would say probably in like every single case I could think of, they will ask like, hey, do you mind if I like, light up over here? Or they'll say like, oh, if you don't want me to like vape here, like I won't. Like I've continually had like good encounters with people that do things like vaping and stuff, like going out of their way to, address and manage what they're doing. So that goes, I think, is partially in the line with the establishment campaign to make people feel bad about what they do. But on the other hand, I think too, it's just like a reflection of generally like normal people, and I would say most of the people I've met that like vape, they're like pretty normal people. Um, they want to get along with other people, and it's like we all have through our creature nature, our bodily nature, we have inclinations towards some things or other things. So we could talk about that too. So just general issue of people having different preferences and needs. So, talking about, let's say, meat consumption, for instance, like certain people, Libre office, like certain people are able to naturally and more easily be vegans. Certain people are able to naturally or more easily be vegans. On the contrary, some people get really sick if they don't eat animal products. I mean, I think this is just like, you just start talking with people, and especially, people who are serious about doing something. And we'll get into this general topic here of functional members in society. When people are trying to do something, it could be anything, like performing on a sports team, doing, a good job in sales. Like now, my favorite endurance sport, like, how do you drive like 3 hours and, you don't need to pull over or like have to stop or anything. I mean, these are things that could be demanding on people. So when people are trying to do something that's difficult, then you're going to discover, that you have certain like needs, or like there's certain stuff that's helpful to do or not helpful to do. It was funny, yesterday I was just talking with some friends about like, if you eat like I notice, and I didn't know this before I started working my current job, but if I eat like Panda Express, it'll always make my stomach like gurgle, like make noise. So it won't necessarily hurt or like feel bad. I think it might be like the quantity or the type of the oil that they use, but it's just like, now I know that there's this connection. Like if I eat Panda Express, I could expect my stomach to gurgle in some way. And I think, people, they find as they live through their life, they find they all have various different needs. And I think we're made this way. Part of the reason is so, we don't, if someone is doing something, say vaping or like, eating meat or, whatever it is that they're doing, like you don't know what's up with that person because you aren't that person. You don't live their life, and their body, etc., etc. And so you shouldn't judge people for what their external circumstances for what they're doing, because like the guy vaping, he could have been addicted to crack cocaine for years, and now he vapes, but he got off like all these hard drugs. You don't know where people are coming from. So just the simple, wholesome stream comment would be like, don't judge people because you don't know where people are from. And also pointing out, like with the vaping and smoking, as I said, like a lot of times, I think it's a humility thing. Like people that know, for instance, society looks down on vaping. People make you feel bad if you smoke and do these things. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why, from my experience, people who do things like vape and smoke, like oftentimes they're like really considerate, nice people, because they know that their behavior is offensive to other people, so it's kind of more on the radar to be like sensitive and think about that. Another example of this sort of more general point too would be like if you meet a really fat person or something, they might actually be like more conscientious and like thinking about like food and stuff problems, because they might have been dealing with and like working with what they have for a long time. On the other hand, like you get someone that's just like naturally super skinny. That's another connection. A lot of people that smoke, they're also like really thin and skinny too. So I think it's also smokers will cite this as an example, like, oh yeah, if I didn't smoke, I just eat all the time. Anyways, kind of beside the point. But that's just to say, like, people could come from all sorts of different places in life, and depending how we've suffered, like whether people look down on you or they make you feel bad about stuff or whatever, it makes you more sensitive and able to better understand people that are from a similar background. So I think a lot of the times, the people that make a big deal or like get angry about like smoking and vaping and stuff, they got to stick up their butt for other stuff. And so, they latch on and like look down on people for, some external thing. And a lot of the people that smoke and stuff, whatever, I mean, they're aware of this. And it's kind of this like a human weakness that they have actually helps them. It's Christian teaching here where it's like, it's like in our weaknesses that God is able to show and work. So it's like if you smoke, you vape, like whatever, then you could understand how people are become dependent on substances or, have issues with stuff, and, people are chill about that. On the other hand, like, let's say you make all your doctor's appointments on time, you get your eyeglass prescription adjusted, you're on your booster schedule, etc., etc. Oftentimes there'll be that sort of person who's like, why can't everybody just like be like me? And then, the rest of the world like looks at these people and it's like, dude, I don't want to be like you. So, cool. Let's see. More talk about vaping. About Panda Express. Hecka says, Panda Express makes my stomach gurgle. That's the seed oils destroying your intestinal lining. You know that? Okay, the more I learn about this stuff, like, I think it is pretty true. When I go to restaurants and stuff, like, I'm assuming they use seed oil, but like now when I cook and things, I'm trying to only use like pretty much just olive oil for stuff. But this is a big topic. I think too, like another related issue with the oil stuff is like by the Christian calendar, oil is one of the things that you fast from. Like right now we're in the Apostles Peter and Paul fast, so today is like a fast day, and we're supposed to only eat bread, vegetables, and fruit. I'm counting coffee as a vegetable or fruit. But along that topic, I think like the oils, and it's the same with meat, like the fatty parts of the oil and stuff. These things, they taste really good, but too much of it is not good for you. I mean, maybe this is kind of obvious. Anyways, like a lot of the people, especially like when people are getting into one of these like cult type dieting things, like, they might say, oh yeah, anything of this category is okay. Like, for instance, I met like, keto carnivore type people, and they'll say something like, oh yeah, like let's take the Jordan Peterson steak thing. They'll be like, oh yeah, I could have as much steak as I want, but I could only eat steak. Or, they might say like, oh yeah, oils are fine, or oh, cheese is fine. So I eat cheese all day long. But I don't eat bread. People might say something along those lines if they're the type of person who's like talking about their diet and stuff all day. And like my personal opinion on that stuff is I think it's not good. It won't be good for most people. Like at the end of the day, my basic conclusions, the longer I'm doing it, because I've been on the just following the church calendar for a while, is I think like it's very simple. It's just like, if you're not the target weight that you want, for instance, like me, I could lose some weight. What do I say? It's like, well, it's because I eat too much, and especially like because I like to eat, like oily foods. So if I like just ate less food and just like did more activities and just chilled out rest so you could properly digest stuff, then things would be better, So that's one cool thing about like being in a fast period now. Like yesterday I started up like doing some more running and stuff again. It was very good because it's like if you aren't thinking about like food and being a diet weenie all day, then you could actually just focus on trying to do what's good and useful for you to do, such that you aren't even thinking about like the food anymore. You plan it, and then you just eat it, and then it is what it is. So I think that's actually we'll transition here from vaping into the nominal topic I had set up for the stream. Oh, one more question. What do you think about Bud Light's marketing tactics? Yeah, just in general, I think like, okay, here's a heuristic question. What good has paying attention to the news ever done you? I would argue that national news, etc., has pretty much never been useful. Exceptions might include like evacuation for an emergency or something like that. But at this point, they just bother you on your cell phone and stuff anyway, so you don't even need to watch the news for that. So stuff like this Bud Light campaign, or like I was in Target today, okay? So, Target, they're pushing all this rainbow stuff hard. I mean, I think one of the lessons that we're supposed to learn from this is it's kind of what I was saying about the internet and internet privacy. Like, the public sphere, the Fortune 500 companies, whatever, like, these aren't your people. They don't care about you. And so they're going to do their thing. Like, I know some of the people here in this chat, like, you guys like to shop at Walmart or whatever because, like, there's cheap prices for what you need to get. I'm kind of on board with that. Here I opened the stream talking about how, why am I on YouTube and why am I using Windows? The reason is because they just work, and at the end of the day, if you're trying to do something, you gotta work with what you're given. So with respect to like Bud Light specifically, should you boycott Bud Light or do whatever? I mean, I would say, it's like Fortune 500 companies. If you don't need them or whatever, yeah, like sure, boycott whoever you want. Depending what sort of stuff you need to get a hold of, though, you might you don't want to make your life unnecessarily difficult. So I'll give an example, like I heard some people talking, and I kind of have this policy. If I'm going to buy like vegetables or something, I'm not going to go out of my way or like try too hard to get like fancy organic, quote unquote organic vegetables or anything, because like at the end of the day, I'm just going to have faith that like vegetables are vegetables, and part of the austerity and the advantage of like eating like vegetables would be that you're just choosing something kind of simple that's right in front of you, that it isn't complicated. So I'm not gonna check, like where are these bananas from, source, blah blah blah. I'm not gonna check that type of stuff. On the other hand, something that maybe you don't eat of as much or it's more expensive, like for instance, if I do and go buy like beef or something, I am gonna try and go and buy the like grass fed or whatever. If I can, but not for the vegetables. So is that like a kind of arbitrary line to draw? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, so as respect to the Bud Light question, at the end of the day, I think just practically speaking, everyone has to sort of make a call, make a policy on how they deal with that. If someone offers me a Bud Light, I'll probably go, yup, and I'll drink it because, like, I like my casual, cold, lager-style American beer. This is an America stream. But do I think, like, Budweiser, whoever, is, like, extra bad or something? No, I don't think so. And I'll bring up this other point too. I think going along this idea that we were talking about with vaping, of the establishment like pushes something and then makes you feel bad about it. Like another idea of this would be social media. Okay, so social media shills it hard. Lots of jobs related to social media. Social media important for business, commerce, etc. And then, okay, so then we have the, we'll call it the controlled opposition slash state-sanctioned scapegoat or punching bag. So on YouTube, for instance, you're allowed to make all the Mark Zuckerberg jokes you want. You could be like, oh, Mark Zuckerberg, he looks like a lizard, he's not a person, You could do that like all day if you want. Tons and tons of videos just talking about like Facebook bad, social media, mental health, blah, blah, blah. Because that's like the controlled opposition. The state, the powers that be, whoever you want to call it, the establishment, they need to give people a kind of release thing so that in their mind the issue is kind of squared away. So it's like, oh no, social media, it has some big impacts on society, blah 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 blah. Oh, what we need to do about it is we need to regulate social media and hold Silicon Valley accountable, blah blah blah. And then they put on their little check mark, their sticker. And it's like, all right, I have awareness of these social issues, and so, now, like, I'm good to go, basically. Okay, we have an interesting question here from Rocket. He says, it helps predict trends, referring back to Bud Light. For example, Bud Light got canceled in the news, so it is now very cheap to purchase. Yeah. I would say this is a practical, actionable thing. And in fact, I'm going to write that down right now because it's early enough. I could actually purchase Budweiser stock after the stream. So I'm going to write that down and I'm going to look at their stock. I'll just announce this on stream, so you as an audience could feel appreciated. Like, here on the stream, at least two of you here, Reaper and Hecka, both of them were bullish on Facebook. So Zuckerberg is getting all this hate, and then these two individuals had some insightful, true analysis to give of like the state of Facebook, now Meta as a company. So I went ahead and I purchased Facebook on their recommendation, in addition to other people's recommendation. And, I think I'm like in the past less than a year, I'm over like 100% profit or something on Facebook Meta. So in terms of saying like, when is it important to pay attention to stories and stuff? That might be one potential answer to that is like, in terms of like market signals, if there's going to be a pump and dump or something, you could ride the wave appropriately as a kind of skilled practice if you're able to see the patterns that are there. So Rocket says, I was talking about the beer from the store I bought at 30 rack for like $5. All right, it doesn't have to be at the stock level too. This is funny that you mentioned that. Like when all during like 2020 when all the COVID stuff was like ramping up, I went to the gas station and like I bought Corona beer because I thought it was funny, and the guy at the counter didn't look amused, and I didn't get a discount. Anyways, okay, cool. So let's go back to our topic here. So we are going from vaping, and then I was transitioning to the topic of functions and programming. And we'll talk about how these are related. So, functions in mathematics, they take some input, like you take an x value, you give a y value, whatever you have to call it. Computer programming, a lot of computer programming is writing functions. Now, I wanted to look at this word programming here, because nowadays, when people hear the word programming, they think of nerds programming computers, but like television programs, or you go to an event, they might give you like a program that's written in a brochure. So program has this much more general sense of basically it's like writing a schedule or creating functions in the sense of like, like social function or whatever. You're organizing activities. Only it's not a computer that runs or executes this program. It is you, the people, that do it. So, you might like develop a training program. Like if you're a coach, you're like a programmer, dude. Like coaches are programmers, and then they program people. So if they run a certain program, they'll become stronger or faster or whatever it is that we're talking about. Okay, so we could think of a lot of human activities like programming, in the sense that there's some input and there's some output, and as long as you obediently follow certain instructions given a certain input, you could pretty much guarantee with some failure rate a certain output. And so we could look at, like, in our lives, how things are programmed. Okay, so let's go to the subject of like vaping and things like that. Okay, when we have attachment, let's say whether it's like to vaping or to coffee, then it's like now in order, let's say for me to go through my emails at work, I now require the input of one coffee, which let's say it costs $3. So to run the Alan answers his email function, let's just say it takes 1 hour and it costs $3, because it'll take me an hour to do it, and you need to give me $3 worth of coffee, and then the output is that all these emails are answered, and so Alan gets to keep his job. Okay, that is like an example of how a function sort of might look in one's daily life, and then you could manage or you could optimize these functions. So for instance, you might say like, I don't like this extra $3 cost of coffee, and it adds let's say it adds a 5-minute extra cost delay, because after you drink coffee, you have to like take a leak, and so it's costing $3 plus 5 minutes, because like coffee is in this routine. So let's work on optimizing this process by getting rid of the coffee. That might be, it's like, this is like a very nerd kind of systems way to think about management, time management, life processes, whatever you want to call it. But I think this is one of the insights that computer programming gives us. For all of us that are trained or have experience programming computers, we understand functions, inputs, outputs, side effects, all these things like that. And if we return to the original sense of programming in like writing programs for people, starting with oneself, and if what you're doing is working, then you could include other people in it. Other people will be like, hey, I like the results that you got. So can you show me how you do things? And you'd be like, yeah, sure. I have this program, this process that I use. And if you use the same system, you could get the same result. Guys, come to my seminar. Like, I'm giving you an MBA for free right now here on stream. Okay, anyways, programming, functions. So if we think about our life in this day, every day you're given a certain amount of like run time. You have resources that you can manage. So you program your day. You say, how do I arrange, these resources such that with this given input, I could get the output that I want to get. And this is how a person arranges their life and is able to work more efficiently. Basically doing what a programmer does called, optimization. You might also have what's called like control flow tools. So like, if I'm at my desk, I do things this way. However, if I have to drive over here, I'm at Starbucks, I'm in my car, I'm at my grandma's house, whatever it is, then you might modify what you do by having like control structures in place. But the crucial idea here is that, programming, nowadays, if we think about it, like the stereotype of programming is just like nerds on computers, but this has kind of been like taken from people broadly. We have to return and think about like programming more broadly, saying like you, and you. We all have like some degree of agency over our lives. Depending where you are, like if you're a kid living with, under your parents, then you're not going to have as much choice in arranging stuff as if you're a person who live on your own, or the head of a household, or depending where you are, you're gonna have different degrees of control, authority over what you do. But given what you do have, and everybody has something, you at least have, freedom to consent or reject in your mind, from certain stuff. Not to say, you control everything that's going on up there. So given what you have, how could you write the best program? And naturally, one thing that comes from asking that question is to ask the question like, what is it even that you do? So what is your primary purpose? So you may have heard in the Bible, like, quote, something like, either serve God or mammon. Let's actually hop over to our interwebs and let's search serving God or mammon. We'll find this quote. And I actually heard that like mammon is a kind of like entity as well. So if I search like mammon on images, I hope nothing really creepy comes up. But you'll be able to find like depictions of like mammon is actually like a kind of demon. Like, look, this fat guy that enslaves people. Let's see what Wikipedia says. Okay, in the Middle Ages, Mammon was often personified and sometimes included in the 7 princes of hell. Mammon in Hebrew means money. The word was adopted in modern Hebrew to mean wealth. And then a depiction of a greedy, keeping all the stuff for himself. Okay, so, right. Matthew 6:24. Take a look. Another thing I found useful, it's like, if there's something that you often have to reach for, you can just keep it on your desk. So like, I really like these small New Testaments because then it's always at hand. So King James Version, subtitle, Anxiety in God's Kingdom. No man can serve 2 masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will hold to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Therefore I say unto you, take no thought of your life, what ye shall eat, or what ye shall drink, nor yet for your body what ye shall put on. Is not the life more than meat, and the body than raiment, or raiments like clothing? Behold the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are ye not much better than they? Which of you, by taking thought, can add 1 cubit unto a stature? So with that thought, manlets watching the stream, it's like this passage, I think, one thing that it's talking about is saying, okay, if our life is like functions, we're like programmers. It's the business of our life to arrange and work things out to maximize our particular output. It's like we're supposed to not give too much thought to the inputs and the outputs, or sorry, the inputs. Like, don't think too much about like, oh, like what food is optimal. It's like or the 5G. Do I need to wear a tinfoil hat because of the 5G waves? Like all these things. Like it might be true that they're putting fluoride in the water and it's turning the freaking frogs gay, and there's like 5G. Like all these things actually might be true some of the time, but I think that's part of the challenge. Is like, rather than focusing on the technical problem and the noise that's at work there, instead what we're supposed to be doing is focusing on our program. How is it that what is it that we're offering? What is it that we're producing? So less care about the inputs and then more care about like us being attentive to the work that we do in order to produce outputs. And another thing in Christian language, you talk about, the title of my previous stream was like bearing fruits. I did another stream post thing too called like about thinking profitably. So what does like thinking profitably mean? Like in kind of nerd speak, it could mean like optimizing functions in a way. So like here, don't take this as theological instruction. This is just my thoughts now. So like either serve God or mammon, and then that was Matthew. Was it 6, 20, 24 ish? Yeah, I think that's right. So what are you maximizing? One of the answers could be, for a Christian, you want to maximize your repentance. So what that will often mean is like, if you have done some error, sin, do the opposite. And on top of that, do it more than you did the previous badness. So some examples of that would be, I believe it was Zacchaeus the tax collector. He returned fourfold to those he unjustly took from. So it's like, what is he doing? How is he maximizing? How is he making profit? Like one thing that he did, it's like he unjustly took from people. So then he does the opposite. Rather than stealing, he gives. And he not only gives to return, to pay back what he had taken, he does it 4x. So this is like mega good returns, in the same way. So say like, okay, suppose you have a problem like gluttony, like I eat too much. Okay, so what's the solution? Fasting, abstinence. If you have a problem, you love pleasure, you're too attached, and you do all these things for pleasure, then you do the opposite. So like you were a gluttonous for pizza one day, what you could be like Zacchaeus. You could do the opposite 4 times as much as what you did the bad thing. Choose whatever multiplier you're able to do. I think that's where it becomes like the art. The art of repentance is like, and this is where we use our like intellect or mind. Like we're not supposed to just like be stupid brainlets and like just like do something just cuz. Like you're allowed to use your brain for like good purposes. For instance, to like optimize and arrange your activities for what you do have authority or you do have control over, like in order to do the best you can. I think what I'm saying now, this is part of what it means like to use your mind, your soul, your strength, like to use everything you have. So if you have like aptitude or skill as a programmer mind type person, then it's like, instead of using that for like, being a cunning fad or whatever, don't be a fad. Use those abilities that you have to do good. So, like fads, they might stir up discord among people, turn people against each other. Okay, well, if you're so clever, if you have such good understanding, instead of doing that, why don't you actually bring peace to a lot of people? Instead of exploiting, psychological this, that, causing people to turn on each other, then if you have a good understanding of things, you could do the opposite. So, like, I'll give an example about this. I've started, like, in this stream here, for instance, I actually used some kind of, you could call them, like, leftist points. Like, I was, like, defending vaping, okay? So, one of the, like, if we talk about, like, right versus left in a kind of Christian context, it'd be like the so-called the left-hand sins is like carnal sins. So, if you're gluttonous, you do fornication, adultery, like you're tempted by your body, so you fall out. These are like, they call them like errors of the left hand. On the other hand, the errors of the right hand would be like, pride and vainglory, like spiritual sins. So oftentimes, like they'll have, let's just say you have all your left hand stuff taken care of. Like you're in good physical health, like you have a good job, you're married, so like all your stuff is taken care of, well ordered in this respect. Then this sort of person, they might begin to have pride, because they think it's because they're so smart and stuff that they get these things, instead of giving glory to God for the good things they have. So that person would be falling to the right. So this is in the Bible where they talk about like being like a Pharisee in the bad sense. It would be like a person who's self-righteous, saying they themselves are the author or the cause of like the goodness they have, instead of giving glory to God. That would be a right hand error. Now on the other hand, the left hand errors, oftentimes they're easier to see and point out, like, haha, that person is smoking, what an idiot, don't they know that it's bad for them? Or, oh, look, the fat guy's eating another hamburger, so stuff like that. It's like, oftentimes, right, it would be the right hand error of somebody like judging somebody because they fall to the left. But oftentimes, it'll be like these left hand errors that are actually, they're helpful for us. So for instance, like there's the stereotype of like, the fedora tipping fat guy on the internet. Like this is the thing, because that person is like, they might broadcast themselves as like being super smart and stuff, but from like how they live their lives and stuff, like they're like a fat slob guy. Okay, so that reality should humble this person to say like, look, if I really know how much what I'm talking about and stuff, maybe I should spend less time like telling other people what to do and take care of my left-hand sins. But that person, instead of doing that, they'll fall deeper and deeper into this hole because they'll spend their time like criticizing, and getting on other people. So it's like ironically, like a lot of the so-called the leftists on the internet, they're actually being they're actually falling into right wing sins. The leftist people are falling into like the right wing sins, in that they're like judging other people and doing all these that sort of stuff. On the other hand, like a lot of right wingers, you could say a lot of the right wingers, they actually they fall into the left hand sins. Like that's why there's a stereotype of like Trump supporter, like big fat beer drinking guy, or like whatever. And it could be like a lot of these people, they have problems and stuff on the carnal sins, the left hand sins. But that's actually part of the reason, why they would like to, as a society, for us to move to the right, because they're humbled and they're in their weakness, and so they would like to correct their weakness and like straighten out the course. The problem is self-evident in front of everybody to see. There's like, if you're just like a big fat guy, like you can't really hide it. Like it is what it is. And so how could you be like that and then also like on the right or something? I'm not saying for everybody, but like for, I think a lot of people, it could be like, you have errors or you fall short in certain ways. And so you're able to see how, like, I don't want everybody to be like fallen like me in the same way. Let's like shift things another way. Like here on this stream, I'm kind of a nerd bugman guy in some ways, right? And I'll talk to other people who have been through similar stuff, and we could understand these issues well. But the idea isn't to set up the the bugman oligarchy and to elevate the bugman. It's to say like, okay, look, we have these problems, these shortcomings, and this way of thinking, at least at this, like, it isn't good. And so now that we could see like our errors or problems, how do we correct for it? So instead of like saying, everybody should use Dvorak keyboard layout and like pushing this stuff hard, let's suppose I use Dvorak keyboard layout. I shouldn't be like a Dvorak supremacist and push it so I could feel like I'm better than everybody. Instead, the like a better answer would be saying like, yeah, I have this tendency to, maybe get interested or, be contrarian or do all these things. How do I use, the programmer mindset, like when I'm saying optimization or things like that, in order to quietly do good, not for other people to see, like for God to see, for and to serve other people. But they don't have to know or care what keyboard layout I'm using. If Dvorak keyboard really offers some advantage of typing faster and not injuring my hands, then I should just use Dvorak and like not talk about it unless somebody wants to know about it. Like I could write my private blog for enthusiasts, but to go around and like try to push it, like in my opinion, I don't. That's just causing like unnecessary conflict and problems. Let's see. Hecka says, feeling superior to other people in your niche domain is the main purpose of Linux. Yeah, no, that's yeah, the tech world is interesting. Like in tech, there's this parallel between like the tech people. They like to talk about themselves as wizards. Like in some ways, it is kind of true. I'll just pull up one example. Like there's this program, Image Magic. Now, so their logo here, this is very explicit. Like you're this wizard guy. But if you look up this word magic, this has to do with like Crowleyan, like homo power stuff. So let's take a look at what wiki has to say. I'm gonna search magic with a K. So that's the alternative spelling for magic. Okay, well, yeah, let's just read Wikipedia real quick. Okay, magic is an ancient practice rooted in rituals, spiritual divinations, and/or cultural lineage, with an intention to invoke, manipulate, or otherwise manifest supernatural forces, beings, or entities in the natural world. So, image magic, you're doing these operations on pixels. So it's like LARPing. It's like LARPing as magic. You could do it in this controlled domain of the computer, but there's a lot of similarities. Is a categorical yet often ambiguous term which has been used to refer to a wide variety of beliefs and practices, frequently considered separate from both religion and science. Interesting here. So look here at this picture here of the magician. So you see this, the kind of infinity looking sign. So we could look at Meta's logo, and then it's like Microsoft's logo. Or it's like, let's look at VS Code logo. So here's this one that has this side. It's interesting if they cut off one of the sides. This is the one I was thinking of. But clearly you can see, like here with Meta, they had this thing. I'll pull up. I've showed this before on the stream, but just so we remember that tech is spooky and occultic. We'll bring this up again. So the Ouroboros, the snake eating the snake, is often depicted in this, like, the so-called infinity sign configuration of the self-refuting principle, the thing eating itself. Meta's logo, oh, it's just an M, bro, it's just goggles. They did that there too. So here in the magician, then you could see that too, and you could think about, like, what do companies like Meta or Apple do? Apple too, that's another one. Apple is like the forbidden fruit. I don't know if Apple's like refreshed their logo lately. I think it's pretty much the same. Anyways, so to go back to the like the wizard thing. So in many ways, it's like Apple, Meta, like they're like the magic companies now, because they're augmented reality, things like that. They're making like a programmable space where they could basically manipulate reality. They could now it's just mostly like movies and kind of like simple apps and stuff. But obviously in the future, they're gonna have plans for saying like let's say you would have like Google Maps, but then Google Maps would just be like projected through your goggles like onto the road. So the street signs or like indicators or whatever would be popping up all over the place. I think we could expect to see that coming, and basically it's just like tech wizard magic. It's like, oh no, manipulating reality itself is too hard. So let's make our own like fake and gray version of it. An example of this is like with the alchemy, the turn lead into gold. How did people figure out how to turn lead into gold? All right, at the end of the day, turning actual lead into actual gold, too hard. But then people discovered, it's like the Federal Reserve. What do they call it? Fractional reserve lending, I think is the term. Fractional reserve banking. Okay. Fractional reserve banking is a system in which only a fraction of bank deposits are required to be available for withdrawal. So my laundry's done soon. Okay. But let's finish talking about fractional reserve banking. So fractional reserve banking is like, if I have $100 deposited in the bank, I could only lend out up to $100. But what if you said I have $100 deposited in the bank, but nobody's going to ask for the money all at once, so I have $100 in the bank, but then I lend out $1,000. Okay, so that's basically what fractional reserve banking is about. And it was like people discovered techniques like this, or like the ARVR stuff, where it's like, okay, we didn't actually manipulate reality in the sense that people in the past had tried to do, but we use this other technique which effectively lets us get our desired result. Like in the same way with the fractional reserve banking, it's like we can't literally turn lead into gold, but what we could do is like play with the numbers and do some computer nerd stuff. And through that way, we could basically get the result that we were looking for. So, as Google used to say, don't be evil. And if you have like a programmer brain and you are good with computers, you're good at making programs. Like turn and use your abilities. Like as Christian, I'll say like for your repentance, use the abilities, the things that you have, not to forcefully take from others, but why not to produce more so you could more freely give to others. There's nothing wrong. We're supposed to think profitably. We're supposed to be efficient. I think sometimes Silicon Valley and stuff, they might even get some excess hate from is it bad to think about efficiency? No, not necessarily, but you have to use and think about efficiency in the right context. And I think more often than not, that has to do with if there's going to be more work or more difficulty involved, be a right-wing extremist on yourself. If you're going to be strict and talk about how degen stuff is, find and root out the degen in yourself. Don't look and criticize other people. Work on the problem in yourself. And I think insofar as you're doing that, as far as I could tell, I think we're licensed to be able to go you could go full spurge mode and have fun super optimizing stuff. And I think it's fun for a reason. It's because it's like an exercise of strength. If you're lifting weights and, doing all that, when you're lifting a lot of weight, it's going to feel good. It feels good to be strong and do good work. In the same way with intellectually with, to write an efficient program, for your life or your schedule or whatever you're doing, and to execute and for everything to go smoothly. Why do we feel a sense of reward when we're doing it? It's because it's part of what it is to make the best use of our abilities and our strength. All right. Rockot is asking me to look at a particular chat. Let me take a look and see if I can find what he's saying before we wrap up. Oh no, I see some chat GPT posting. Don't post that chat GPT stuff. That the bad juju. Okay, so some more esoteric image stuff. Yeah, I'll have to do another stream at some other point, going over the some more of the spooky stuff. I think my particular contribution to all that could be looking more at the tech stuff specifically. Another example. Oh, okay. I got to show you guys one juicy example of esoteric stuff. This one really surprised me. So I'm going to look at the Confucius Institute. This one is nuts. Okay, tell me this isn't a 666. Okay. So this is not to dab. I'm not dabbing on Confucius or anything. But to say nowadays in our current world, the East Asian cultures, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, these things are being promoted. And one kind of pattern I started to notice was that the things that are being promoted is anything but Christ, anything but Christianity. And so what I'm saying when I'm saying I'm not dissing on Confucius, Confucius lived before the time of Christ. So I'm not saying like everything Confucius is bad or whatever, but saying that like a lot of these current organizations and institutions that we now see, they've kind of morphed into this thing where their whole purpose is to offer like religion, tradition, culture, to offer all these things to say like we'll give you all these things, just anything but Christ. So the powers that be, they would love for everybody in the world, like it doesn't matter, become Buddhist, become Muslim, become a neo-Confucian, become a neo-pagan, like we don't care, just become like everything except for a Christian. And here, sadly, we see it's like Confucianism. Like, okay, here too, there's like a dove. It said, I think, in the book of, it was one of the epistles. Search Bible, peace and safety. Let's find this quote. 1 Thessalonians 5. Let's take a look. Let's pull up Confucius. And let me pull up 1 Thessalonians. Okay. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. You are all the children of light and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. So, obviously, much more in the epistle, but that phrase peace and safety, I bring that up because here with this Confucius Institute thing, what do you have? It's like a dove, so it's like a kind of universal symbol of peace, and then you have this 666 imagery at the same time. So it's like an anything but Christ beast system promising peace and safety. And so like nowadays in the world, whether it's China or whether it's Russia, there's a lot of big machinations and power going on. You could find a lot of geopolitical talk about civilizational realignment, all sorts of stuff like that. But it's just like this, here. So do I think that the people that like made this logo, were they like trying to do this on purpose? I'm not exactly sure how these things work, but I feel like the patterns that emerge are not coincidental. The person should be like, oh yeah, just design a logo where you incorporate a bird, blah blah blah, and like a weird distorted globe thing. Like, I don't know what was going on with the person who made this logo, but the point being is like, for whatever reason, all these organizations and powers of the world, like, stuff is just freaking, like, there's creepy stuff everywhere. And you could ask the question, like, so why are you people obsessed with the number 666 and like globes and like other stuff like this? I don't know, but when you do see these symbols and things like stamped on stuff, to me it's it's like a kind of a red flag, which is say, I'm sure the Confucius Institute, they probably publish some useful things, say some useful stuff, so like take it what it is if you encounter it. And I'm not saying like boycott them like Bud Light or whatever, but look at what are people saying and why, and it could very well be they're trying to do the anything but Christ objectives. So I don't know. All right, so with some nice schizo posting, at the end there, Reaper says, "What if it's just world peace?" As I was saying, promising peace and safety. So is it? What do you mean, just world peace? Like, obviously, if you think that there's going to be some one world government or some bad guys taking over, they're not going to do it by saying, "Oh, we're just going to enslave you," blah blah blah. It's like the apple, You have to offer something that looks sweet, looks nice, entice people to be disobedient to God, to deny Christ for whatever it is they're doing. It's a trick. So if somebody's going to be like an evil ruler of the world, they don't just explicitly say, like, "I'm going to be an evil ruler of the world." Well, they might actually do that, but they'll kind of say it as like a funny entertainment guy. But, they're completely serious in what they're saying. These are patterns that we see of our controllers, puppets of the powers that be. All right. So Skeletor's denying that there's any number or symbolism in the logo. Yeah, if you want to be a coincidence theorist, go ahead. You could think stuff is just random, but you're wrong, and it's not. So, take heed of the warnings and look into stuff if you want. But if you do not do so, do not say that you have not been informed about that. All right, fellow Redditors. Thanks everybody for tuning into the stream. I hope you enjoyed what we had to offer today. And if there's any more questions or comments or anything you would like discussed in a future stream, please let me know. It seems like people really like and enjoy these streams. And like for me, if I'm going to look at some topic or talk about it anyways, I like to do these as well. And, we were like writing all sorts of notes in a PDF today. So, like, for instance, people will talk about, like, writer's block, things like that. I never have a problem with writer's block. Like, I'll just go over my notes. I have, like, dozens of blog posts I could write. But if I did it, then people would be like, "Stop spamming my email," or something. So that's one reason I don't do it. So thanks, everyone, for joining. And, yeah, feel free to contact me if you have any questions or stories or things you want me to cover. And I hope you all have a good, blessed rest of the day. Thank you.